I stood at the reservoir controls, my fingers wrapped around the cold steel wheel that controlled everything. Morning light scattered across the water like scattered diamonds. Far below, 10 mansions rose from the valley floor luxury homes built on stolen ground. My ground, Brandon's fortune, constructed on lies. My phone lit up with a text from my attorney. Naomi, are you absolutely certain? There's no reversing this. I typed back instantly. I've never been more certain. But first, I needed to remember how a woman who believed in forever ended up here. Preparing to wash away her ex-husband's world that began 18 months earlier on an ordinary Tuesday. I left work early with a splitting headache, wanting nothing more than my bed in silence. Brandon mentioned working from home that day, handling real estate negotiations. Our house seemed unusually quiet when I entered. His car sat in the driveway, but I heard nothing strange, since his business calls usually echoed through every room. I climbed the stairs slowly. Our bedroom door stood half open. I pushed it wider. Brandon wasn't alone. Melissa, my college roommate, lay tangled with him in our sheets. They were so absorbed they didn't notice me standing there, watching 8 years of marriage disintegrate. Brandon's head finally turned. His expression showed irritation, not guilt, as if I'd interrupted something important. Naomi, he said flatly, we should talk. Melissa had enough shame to pull the blanket higher, but she didn't leave. Didn't apologize. Just sat there like she belonged. How long? My voice sounded distant. Does it matter? Brandon swung his legs out and reached for his pants. How long? I repeated, louder. 3 years, Melissa whispered. 3 years. While I worked 60-hour weeks to help pay our mortgage. While I planned our future, talked about children. While I trusted them both completely. I want a divorce, Brandon announced, casual as ordering takeout. I studied his face, wondering how I'd missed every sign. The late meetings, the multiplying business trips, the distance whenever I tried to be close. Get out, I said. This is my house, too. I paid half. Get out. Something in my tone convinced him. He grabbed his shirt and wallet. Melissa scrambled into her clothes, avoiding my eyes. At the doorway, Brandon turned back. My lawyer contacts you tomorrow. We'll split everything 50-50, sell the house. Divide accounts. You keep your land, I keep my business. Fair. Then he left. Walked away from 8 years, like they meant nothing. I stood there staring at wrinkled sheets that smelled like his cologne and her perfume. I thought about the woman I'd been an hour ago, who believed her life was stable. That woman was gone. The divorce papers arrived the next afternoon. Brandon demanded half of everything, including half the appraised value of my grandmother's valley property land that had belonged to my family for 3 generations. Land Grandma Rose left specifically to me because she trusted me to protect it. I called an attorney that same day. Patricia Chun came highly recommended and wasted no time on sympathy. He has 0 legal claim to inherited property, she said, reviewing Brandon's demands. That land was yours before marriage. He can't touch it. Good, because he's getting nothing. The divorce consumed 4 months. 4 months of Brandon's lawyers trying every angle to extract more money. He claimed he'd supported me through engineering school, deserved compensation for his contributions. I had documentation for everything, every dollar earned, every bill paid. My records proved I'd actually contributed more financially than Brandon. His claims crumbled under scrutiny. The final settlement was clean. He got the house and his business. I got my savings, my car, and Grandma Rosie's 40 acres. No alimony either direction. I signed papers on a Friday and moved into a small apartment that weekend. My sister helped me pack, carefully avoiding the bedroom where everything fell apart. You'll be amazing, she promised as we unloaded boxes. I wanted to believe her. But that night, alone with cardboard towers surrounding me. I felt broken and stupid, yet something else stirred inside me. Something that started as a tiny spark and grew stronger daily. Anger. Not explosive rage that makes you reckless. The cold, calculating kind that makes you think clearly. The kind that makes you plan. I spent 6 months rebuilding. Started a consulting business using my engineering background, working with construction companies to optimize efficiency. The work kept me occupied enough that I didn't dwell on Brandon or Melissa. My business expanded faster than expected. Word spread quickly. Companies needed someone who understood both technical aspects and practical budget management. I made new friends, renovated my apartment, started running mornings, getting stronger. I was building something real, something entirely mine, but I never forgot about my valley land. 6 months post-divorce, I drove out to walk the property. Grandma Rose always dreamed of making it meaningful. Maybe an education center where children could learn about nature, or a healing retreat. I wanted to walk the 40 acres, start imagining possibilities. The dirt road seemed rougher than I remembered. Around the final curve, the valley opened before me. My heart stopped. The land was destroyed. Bulldozer tracks scarred the meadow. My childhood creek had been diverted. Trees lay stacked like garbage. And everywhere construction. I parked, hands frozen on the wheel. This couldn't be real. But there stood Grandma Rose's oak tree. There lay the bear-shaped rock formation. This was definitely my property. And someone was building on it. 10 foundation holes. Massive excavations with concrete forms already placed. Lumber stacks wrapped in plastic. Portable toilets lining the perimeter. This wasn't random construction. This was major development. A construction foreman emerged from a trailer near the entrance. "Help you?" he asked. "This is my land," I managed, voice steadier than I felt. "Who authorized this?" He frowned, consulted his clipboard. "We have county permits. Everything's approved. Property owner is Brandon Coal Development Company. Brandon. My ex-husband was building on my land. Let me see those permits." He hesitated, then handed over the clipboard. I read through documents dated 4 months prior, right during our divorce. Property listed as Brandon Coal Development Company. The signature on ownership documents resembled mine, but I'd never signed anything. These documents are forged. This land was awarded to me in divorce settlement. It's legally mine. The foreman took his clipboard back. "Lady, I don't know about your divorce. We have legal county permits. If there's an ownership issue, take it up with the county and our client. Your client is my ex-husband building illegally on my property. Get a court order. Until then, we have work to do." He walked away, leaving me standing among the ruins of Grandma Rose's legacy. I photographed every foundation, every permit number visible. Then I called Patricia. "Brandon is building on my land right now. 10 houses. They have county permits claiming he owns it." Silence. Then, "Are you certain it's your land?" "I'm standing here. Definitely my land." The divorce settlement was crystal clear. "I'll contact the county Monday. Find out what happened." Monday? They're destroying everything right now. County offices are closed weekends. Monday morning, I'll file emergency injunction. We'll stop construction. But Monday felt too late. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out every document Grandma Rose left me. Deeds, surveys, water rights papers. Water rights. I read slowly this time, carefully. Buried in a 1956 file, I found an agreement signed by my great-grandfather. Shared water rights and irrigation. System management. My hands trembled reading the legal language. The document gave my family partial ownership and control of an old irrigation dam upstream from the valley, built in the 1940s to control water flow for farming. As farming declined, the dam fell into disuse. but ownership rights remained. I owned partial control of a dam that regulated water flow to my property. The next morning, I consulted a water rights attorney. She reviewed everything and confirmed my suspicions. These rights remain valid. The dam operates under joint management of 3 families who own surrounding land. 2 families sold their land decades ago, but water rights weren't explicitly transferred. You likely have majority control. What does that mean practically? You have a legal right to manage water flow from that dam within certain boundaries. You can't cause flooding that damages other properties, but you can control water to your own land. Even though someone else built there, water rights are separate from land ownership. Even if someone claims land ownership, you still hold water rights. They're distinct legal issues. I thanked her and disconnected. Mind Racing. Brandon built his entire development in a valley where I controlled the water supply. He never checked water rights, never considered the old dam, but I controlled that dam. And that dam could release substantial water. I hired an engineer to assess the dam, someone I knew from consulting work. I need evaluation of an old dam. Tell me if it's functional and what happens if floodgates open. We spent 3 hours examining structure, gates, water flow channels. It's old but solid, he concluded. Gates can open. If you released all water simultaneously, you'd flood the downstream valley. Amount of flooding depends on reservoir levels and duration of release. Would anyone get hurt? Not if done properly. Give warning. Ensure nobody's in the valley. Water flows through fast, causes erosion and flooding, then drains within hours. What about buildings? He gazed down at the valley. Depends on foundations. If they're not properly sealed against water, you'd have serious damage. Foundation erosion, flooding. But why are you asking? Just curious about the property. After he left, I stood at the dam, looking down at 10 houses taking shape on my stolen land. I wasn't ready yet. Not quite. First, I needed certainty. Needed to know that when I did this, it would accomplish my goal. And I needed absolute confirmation it was legal. The water rights attorney confirmed my authority to manage flow. The engineer confirmed functionality. My investigator, James Wu, a former detective, was gathering information about Brandon's timeline and finances. All pieces were aligning. I just needed to wait for the right moment. Patricia filed a comprehensive lawsuit in early September against Brandon Coal Development Company, Melissa Morgan, and the county for approving fraudulent permits. This will be prolonged, she warned. Brandon has excellent lawyers and deep resources. They'll contest every motion. She was right. The legal battle became a war of attrition. Brandon's team filed dismissal motions, claiming I lacked standing because permits were legally issued. We countered with forgery evidence. They demanded handwriting expert proof. We hired an expert who analyzed signatures. Her 40-page report concluded the transfer signature was likely forged. Likely? I asked Patricia. Not definitely? Handwriting analysis isn't exact science. She can say highly probable, but not 100% certain. Brandon's lawyers hired their own expert, claiming authenticity. Now 2 experts contradicted each other. The judge ordered a hearing to determine. Signature validity scheduled for November. 3 months away. Meanwhile, construction continued. I visited weekends, watching houses take shape. Walls rose, roofs completed, windows installed. They were beautiful, large, modern, with expansive mountain view windows. Grandma Rose's land was becoming someone else's dream. I focused on my business to maintain sanity. My consulting firm grew beyond expectations. I hired 2 full-time employees, moved into small office space. At night, I researched water law and dam operations obsessively. I read everything about irrigation systems, water rights, legal water control uses. The water rights attorney confirmed. repeatedly. As long as you're not intentionally damaging other properties, you can control water to your own land. It's within your rights. What if water causes incidental damage to unauthorized structures on my land? She considered carefully. That's between you and whoever built those structures. If they built without permission, they accepted risk of existing property conditions, including water flow. In October, we had our major court hearing. Both sides presented signature evidence. Handwriting experts testified. Brandon claimed we'd had an agreement for property transfer, though he couldn't produce any written agreement beyond forged documents. I testified no such agreement existed. That I'd never sell Grandma Rose's land. That the signature wasn't mine. The judge listened carefully, then said he needed time reviewing evidence. Ruling in 30 days. 30 more days waiting. After the hearing, I encountered Brandon and Melissa in the courthouse hallway. They looked confident, talking with their lawyers. Melissa saw me and looked away quickly. Brandon met my eyes. "You're wasting time with this lawsuit," he said, approaching. "Permits are valid. Construction is legal. You're just bitter you didn't think of it first. You forged my signature and stole my land," I said quietly. "That's fraud. Prove it in court." "Oh, wait, you're trying. How's that working?" "Brandon, let's go," Melissa urged, pulling his arm, but he didn't move. "You always were naive, Naomi, thinking the world is fair, thinking justice matters. It doesn't. Money matters. Power matters. And I have both." "For now," I said. Something in my voice made him pause. He studied my face, trying to understand my meaning. Then he laughed. "You can't touch me. You're just a bitter ex-wife. I'm building an empire. Empires fall," I said simply. He walked away, Melissa beside him. I watched them leave, my anger cold and crystalline. James called late October. "I have the development timeline. Houses finish end of January. They're planning a grand opening February 10th. Press, buyers, everything. They've started marketing to potential purchasers. Have they sold anything? No. Brandon's waiting until complete construction. Wants buyers seeing the final product. Better prices that way," which meant Brandon's money remained tied up in development. He hadn't recouped any investment. If something went wrong before sales closed, he'd face serious financial trouble. The judge's ruling came mid-November. Patricia called immediately. "We won the signature motion. The judge agrees there's sufficient evidence the signature was likely forged." My heart leaped. "So we can stop construction?" "Not yet. The judge ordered full county investigation. They must review all permits and ownership documents. But he's not issuing a stop work order because construction is so advanced. He doesn't want causing unnecessary economic harm if permits are eventually validated." How does that make sense? If the signature's forged, permits are invalid. I know. But Brandon's lawyers argued stopping construction now would cost millions. The judge wants more investigation before that decision. County has 60 days for review. 60 days. By then, houses would be finished. That night, I drove to the dam. I stood in darkness, listening to water flowing through the creek. The reservoir was full from fall rains. Substantial water behind that dam. I thought about Grandma Rose, about how she always said sometimes you must be patient. Wait for the right moment, then act decisively. The right moment was approaching. I could feel it. I decided to stop watching construction. Driving to the valley every weekend only made me bitter and angry emotions that weren't helping me build my future. I focused on what I controlled. My business. Harper Engineering Solutions was thriving. I had clients in 3 states, all needing construction optimization, workflow improvements, project management. I hired 3 more employees in December. We moved into bigger office space with large downtown windows, a conference room, individual offices. Standing in my new office that first day, I felt genuine pride. I built this myself. Without Brandon. Without anyone. This company was mine. My personal life improved too. I joined a book club, made friends with independent women who had their own careers and lives. We discussed books but ended up talking about everything. Relationships, work, family, dreams. One friend, Angela, owned a small bakery. Another, Tanya, specialized in environmental law. A third, Denise, taught at the university. They were smart, independent, supportive in ways Melissa never was. I started dating again in January. Nothing serious. A few coffee dates, one forgettable dinner, a hiking trip with a guy who talked endlessly about his ex-girlfriend. I wasn't ready for relationships. And that was fine. I was learning to be happy alone. James called early February. Houses are finished. Brandon's having final inspection this week. Grand opening scheduled February 10th as planned. Have they sold anything? Not officially, but significant buyer interest. Brandon expects closing sales on at least 5 houses within a month of opening. 5 houses at $800,000 each. $4 million. Half Brandon's expected profit. When's the grand opening event? Saturday, February 10th, starting 2 p.m. They're inviting potential buyers, local press, city officials. Brandon plans proposing to Melissa at the event. Of course he did. Make it a spectacle. Generate attention for development and relationship. I called the water rights attorney the next day. If I wanted releasing water from the dam, what's the legal process? File notice with the county at least 48 hours advance. Lets them know water levels will change, mainly for downstream people who might be affected. Do I need permission? No. You own water rights. Just give notice. What if someone built structures in the water flow path without my permission? That's their problem. You're not responsible for unauthorized structures on your property, but you must ensure you're not intentionally causing damage. Water release needs legitimate purpose. What counts as legitimate? Irrigation, flood control, property maintenance. Cleaning irrigation channels would be legitimate. Testing dam operation would be legitimate. Releasing excess water, preventing dam failure would be legitimate. I thought carefully. If I haven't released water in years and need clearing channels to ensure they're functional, that's legitimate maintenance? Absolutely. Old irrigation systems need regular testing and maintenance for safety and functionality. And if I gave proper notice, and water flowing through my property impacted unauthorized construction, that wouldn't be my fault. The attorney paused. Then, Naomi, I must be clear. You can't use water rights as a weapon. Deliberately damaging someone's property is illegal, even if they built on your land without permission. I understand. But if I'm doing legitimate dam and irrigation system maintenance, and someone else's unauthorized construction happens to be in the way, that's not my fault. Correct. As long as your primary purpose is legitimate maintenance and you give proper notice, you're within your rights. Thank you. That's what I needed knowing. On Wednesday, February 7th, I filed county notice. Water release from Irrigation Dam 7 scheduled Saturday, February 10th, beginning 2 p.m. Purpose: system maintenance and channel clearing. Expected duration: 2 to 4 hours. The county clerk stamped and filed it. Public record now. Anyone who checked could see I planned releasing water. But who checks irrigation notices? Not Brandon. Not his development company. They were too busy preparing their grand opening. Saturday morning, 6 a.m., I drove to the dam. Sunrise painted the sky pink and gold. The reservoir was full from winter rains. Behind that dam was enough water to fill the valley. I checked gate mechanisms. The engineer Had serviced everything last week, all functional and safe. The wheel valve turned smoothly. Gates would open without problems. I sat in my car and waited. At noon, I drove to a hilltop overlooking the valley. From here, I could see the entire development. All 10 houses, beautiful and complete, sitting below. Cars were arriving for the grand opening. Expensive cars. Potential buyers. A white tent stood between houses. Tables, chairs, a catering truck. Brandon and Melissa were preparing for their big day. Through binoculars, I watched them. Brandon in an expensive suit, shaking hands. Melissa in a designer dress, smiling graciously. They looked happy, successful. They had no idea what was coming. At 1:30. I drove back to the dam. At 1:55. I took out my phone and started recording video. At 2 p.m. exactly. I began turning the wheel. The wheel resisted at first. Years of rust and disuse made it stiff. But slowly it moved. I heard gates groaning as they opened. Water began flowing. First a trickle, then more. The sound grew from whisper to roar as thousands of gallons rushed through opening gates into old irrigation channels below. I watched water flow down the hillside, following channels carved decades ago by my great-grandfather. Channels running directly through Grandma Rose's land in the valley. Channels Brandon never bothered checking before building. The irrigation system was designed flooding the valley for farming. That was its purpose, and it still worked perfectly. I recorded everything. The dam, water released, flow through channels. All documented. All legal. Then I drove back to my hilltop vantage point. James was already there with professional camera equipment. "This is insane," he said. But he was smiling. "Brilliant, but insane. Just document everything." We watched through binoculars as water reached the valley. At first, people didn't notice. They were inside houses touring rooms, admiring finishes. The party was in full swing under the white tent. Then someone noticed water flowing across ground. They pointed. Others turned to look. The flow was increasing as more water came from the dam. Old irrigation channels did exactly what they were designed for, directing water through the property, spreading it across the valley floor, right through foundation holes where Brandon's houses sat. Water began pooling around foundations. The houses were sealed against rain, but not designed for this much water. The irrigation system was meant delivering thousands of gallons for farming. It did that perfectly. Water started seeping into foundation cracks, flowing into basement spaces through small gaps around pipes and cables. The houses weren't designed to be waterproof against sustained flooding. People started running from houses. I saw panic. Saw Brandon trying controlling the situation. Someone was on a phone, probably calling emergency services, but there was no emergency. This was controlled water release from legal dam operation. I'd filed proper notice. I was doing legitimate maintenance. Water kept coming for 2 hours exactly as I planned. 2 hours of continuous flow through irrigation channels, flooding the valley just like it was designed to do. James photographed everything. Water flow, flooding, chaos at the development. Brandon arguing with someone who might have been a county official. Melissa standing in her designer dress with water soaking her shoes. At 4 p.m. I drove back to the dam and closed the gates. Water flow stopped. Within 30 minutes, the valley started draining. Irrigation channels carried excess water away naturally, exactly as designed. I drove home exhausted but satisfied. That evening, James sent photos. The development was a disaster. Water had flooded basements, soaked insulation, damaged drywall. Foundations were cracked from water pressure. Landscaping was destroyed. Brandon's empire, built on stolen land, was drowning. Brandon tried fighting back. He filed emergency restraining orders, called police, threatened lawsuits, but everything I'd done was legal. I owned water rights. I'd filed proper notice. I was conducting legitimate dam and irrigation system maintenance. The judge denied Brandon's restraining order, stating I'd followed proper procedure. County investigation confirmed my permits were forged. Criminal fraud charges were filed against Brandon. His development couldn't be sold. No title company would insure sales with disputed ownership. He couldn't repair damage without permits he no longer had. His investors pulled out. His business collapsed. In April, county demolition crews arrived. Brandon hadn't removed the houses as court ordered, so the county did it for him. I watched from my hilltop as heavy equipment rolled onto my property. One by one, the houses fell. All 10 reduced to rubble and broken dreams. Brandon showed up on the third day, standing at the demolition site's edge. Even from a distance, I could see his shoulders slumped in defeat. He watched his empire being destroyed. Melissa had left him 2 weeks prior when the money ran out. Brandon lost everything. His business, his money, his relationship. The demolition took 2 weeks. When finished, the valley was scarred but empty. All traces of Brandon's development were hauled away. My land was mine again. I hired environmental restoration companies to repair damage. We replanted trees, restored the natural creek flow, seeded native grasses across torn earth. The district attorney charged Brandon with fraud, forgery, and theft. His trial was scheduled for September. He faced up to 10 years in prison if convicted. I didn't attend court proceedings. I was done with Brandon. He was someone else's problem now. Instead, I focused on my future. On the land. On my business. On building something real and lasting. I designed an education center focused on environmental sustainability and conservation. A place where children could learn about nature, where families could camp and hike, where people could come to heal and reconnect with the natural world. It would take years to build. Years of planning and fundraising and hard work. But that was fine. I had time. 1 year later, I stood in the valley on a beautiful October morning. The education center was nearly complete. A main building with classrooms and offices. A community center with kitchen facilities. Cabins for overnight guests. Walking trails through restored woodland. It was beautiful. More beautiful than anything Brandon could have built. The grand opening was scheduled for the following weekend. Local schools were sending students for the first environmental education programs. Families had booked cabins for summer season. Everything I planned was coming together. Jordan, a teacher I'd been dating for over a year, stood beside me, his hand warm in mine. We'd built something real. Something lasting. No games. No betrayal. Just genuine partnership. Your grandmother would be proud, he said. I hope so. This is what she always wanted for this land. My business was better than ever. 20 employees now. Office space in 2 cities. A reputation as one of the best consulting firms in the region. Success. I built myself. My sister and mother came for the education center's opening weekend. We walked trails together, looking at everything I'd created. You did this all yourself, my mom said, voice full of pride. After everything Brandon put you through, you didn't let it break you. I almost did, I admitted. But I realized being broken only hurts me. Building something better is the real revenge. The weekend was perfect. Kids learning about watersheds and ecosystems. Families hiking and camping. People finding peace in nature. Sunday evening, after everyone left, I walked to the creek alone. Water ran clear and strong, following its natural path through my land. The dam upstream was still functional, but now it served its original purpose, managing water for the education center's gardens and programs. I thought about Brandon sometimes, but without anger now. He was in prison, paying for his crimes. His life was his own problem. I thought about Melissa too. Last I heard, she was working as a receptionist in Florida. Her dreams of being a developer gone. She sent me a letter once, apologizing for everything. I never responded. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. Mostly I thought about Grandma Rose, about the legacy she left me. Not just land, but values, strength, resilience, the ability to build something meaningful from nothing. Jordan found me by the creek as the sun was setting. Ready to go? Almost. I just wanted to say thank you. To who? To the land. To my grandmother. To myself, I guess, for having courage to fight for what was mine. He wrapped his arm around me. You're amazing. You know that. I'm just someone who refused to give up. We walked back to the car as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Brandon tried to destroy me, tried to steal my inheritance and build his empire on my losses. Instead, I destroyed his empire and built something better. Something that would last long after his prison sentence ended. Something that honored Grandma Rose's memory and helped others. That was the best revenge of all. Not tearing him down, though, that happened too. But building myself up. Creating something meaningful. Finding genuine happiness that didn't depend on anyone else. I thought I needed Brandon to be happy. Thought marriage and partnership were the only way to build a life. I was wrong. The strongest foundation is the one you build yourself. And my foundation was unbreakable.